Hello, I'm Sue Collins. I'm European Policy Advisor to Butterfly Conservation Europe, and I'm very happy to be with you today at the important SERE conference on restoration to discuss restoration of grasslands for butterflies and other pollinators. In this presentation, I'm going to underline that insect declines are serious, that butterflies are good indicators. I'm going to share some evidence of the need for restoration action and an example of effective restoration. I'm going to outline BCE's guidelines for sustainable management of habitats and underline the importance of insect data availability increasing and being used. And I'm going to finish with some BCE policy recommendations to deliver the recovery of pollinators as envisaged in the EU biodiversity strategy. So butterflies are good indicators because they have a short life, a fast reaction, they relate to specific habitats, they're easy to observe, and they're very popular with the public. The UN Environment Foresight Brief underlines the point that insects and their habitats are increasingly threatened by multiple pressures, and declines in insects, especially pollinating insects, of course, bodes very badly for pollination services, which are of economic importance. Insects and their habitats are also of intrinsic value. There's lots of butterfly data available, and there are some deficiencies, including for other pollinators, especially bees. So butterflies are good indicators to shape conservation and restoration and evaluate effectiveness. What evidence is there of the need to restore grasslands in particular? Well, standardized citizen science butterfly monitoring schemes have been set up in 21 EU member states by BCE and its partners, and field monitoring data on the abundance of butterflies has been collected for several decades. The EU grassland butterfly indicator shows significant 25% declines across the EU 27 since 1990, and this is a very bad situation. This situation is also emphasized by the state of butterflies reported in Article 17 reports under the Habitats Directive by EU member states. And you'll see from this graph that for Habitats Directive grassland butterflies, i.e. those of European importance, over 60% of them are in unfavorable conservation status and declining, and only a quarter are in favorable status. The situation with grasslands is also very bad. The grasslands are important for pollinators. 70% of those are in unfavorable bad or unfavorable inadequate condition, and many of them are declining. The situation hasn't improved much since, if at all, since 1990, since 2012. So urgent action to restore is required. These maps show the situation at member state level. The one on the left shows what the status of butterflies is across the EU, grassland butterflies of European importance. And as you can see, the pale colours, the pale countries, Spain, half of France, Portugal, and so on, 0% of Habitats Directive grassland butterflies are in favourable status. The only bright spot is really Estonia, where they're mostly in favourable. The situation is mirrored for important grassland habitats for pollinators, and as you'll see, Romania has some remaining high biodiversity grasslands, although these are threatened by various pressures. And much of Central, Eastern, and the Baltic countries have poor status, with many having 0% of their top 5 grassland habitats in favourable status. The Habitats Directive reports show a list of high impact pressures and threats, and the top 3 are abandonment and overgrazing and inappropriate mowing or cutting of grasslands. And these threats and pressures are the same at EU level, at biogeographic zone level, and at country level. So it's quite clear that member states know what to do to improve the conservation status of butterflies and pollinator grasslands. They just need to invest in doing it at scale. Here's an example of effective restoration for Fabriciana adipae, which is high brown fertility in the UK. This butterfly thrives on agricultural marginal land, in this case in the Hedon Valley in Exmoor, and its larvae feed only on the violas in very warm microclimates produced by bracken. So this is a map of the project that was undertaken for 15 years from 2002 to 2017. And the blue areas are where the butterfly was present in 2015. And the graph shows that over the 15-year period of advice and action, the populations increased by 870% in abundance, and there were population increases on 4 core sites. 4 sites were colonized. There were no extinctions, and the occupied sites increased from 12 to 16. The restoration actions undertaken include grazing, fencing, management of scrub, and management of the bracken. So this example is by no means on its own in Europe. There are many examples of effective restoration and monitored increases in butterflies and the state of the habitats. The Article 17 reports show the most dominant conservation measures that member states could take, and they're adapting mowing and grazing, maintaining existing extensive agricultural practices and agricultural landscape features, and reinstating practices to address abandonment. So these can all be funded through the Common Agricultural Policy reforms, and they are urgently needed. Butterfly Conservation has published a report on do's and don'ts to help farmers decide what they need to do to manage butterflies better. And the guidelines for good management can be generalized to grasslands for pollinators, manage at a landscape scale in favor of small-scale habitat patches, maintain active pastoral systems, manage for structural diversity and edges, support mosaics and create connections between habitats, avoid uniform cutting dates, monitor woodland actively, and monitor butterflies and other pollinators. There is a need to increase insect data availability and use. The European Butterfly Monitoring Scheme database is a world leader in collating data collected with standardized methodology and recorded systematically. The ABLE parliamentary pilot project increased butterfly monitoring schemes to 21 EU member states by the end of 2019. Grassland butterfly indicator, as I said, has declined by 25%. Woodland indicator shows some recovery since declines in the 1990s. The new spring parliamentary preparatory action project will extend European butterfly monitoring schemes to the whole of the EU and test the rollout of the EU pollinator monitoring scheme, which, as well as butterflies, will cover bees, hoverflies, and moths. There are some other data gaps that need to be filled, e.g. for rare and threatened species. So to sum up, BCE's policy recommendations to help reverse pollinator declines are firstly to set a binding EU pollinator recovery target, set binding ecosystem restoration targets, especially for semi-natural grasslands, use EBMS data and indicators to strengthen EU policy design and evaluation, and member states cap strategic plans, which can include eco schemes, targeted agri-environment schemes, incentives to preserve landscape features. Other plans that are important are forestry, urban and regional plans, Natura 2000 management plans and measures, and very importantly for member states, prioritised action frameworks which allocate funding for restoring Natura 2000 sites and species. We need to roll out the EU pollinator monitoring scheme across the EU member states in the next coming years, and we need member states to invest at scale to reduce the adverse effects of intensive agriculture, including reducing pesticide use and nitrogen deposition, which causes eutrophication of grasslands and makes rank vegetation grow more strongly. We need to reverse semi-natural grassland abandonment by supporting grazing and mowing regimes and restore abandoned meadows. Increasing butterfly larval plant resources, creating more open habitats and edges in forests and woods, and encourage butterfly-friendly urban green spaces and infrastructure. Member states also need to invest in climate action to reduce threats in the longer term. And finally, monitoring and reporting biodiversity outcomes and increasing effective restoration actions is urgently needed at scale across the EU to meet the aspiration in the EU biodiversity strategy. So thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful, and thank you to all the volunteers.